Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me here. So before I start, just curious, how many of you are working on AI stuff? Can you raise your hand? Oh, a lot. So today, my topic is AI startup ecosystem in the US and China. I will provide some comparative perspectives on the two ecosystems. Okay, so many of you have noticed that AI startups grow rapidly. So if you look at AI unicorns meaning startups have over 1 billion valuations. There are 32 AI unicorns by 2018. So this is reported by CB Insights. This is about 10% of the whole unicorn club, and this percentage is continue growing. Note that there's 17 companies from US, 10 from China. So it looks like US has more AI unicorns than China. But if we look at this figure, we look at top 5 most founded AI unicorns. Actually, China has 3. And the most 2 well-founded AI unicorns are from China. Maybe you are not familiar with some of the companies. I will provide you a little bit background. The first well-founded company is called ByteDance. Actually, they have a big office in Culver City. ByteDance raised $3 billion. It's a Chinese company. It has a number of products, but the 2 main products, one is Toutiao, which is AI-powered news app. It has over 500 million monthly active users. The second one, which is probably more popular, called TikTok. They have over 500 million monthly active users globally. This is an AI-powered short video sharing app. If you haven't used it, please have a try. Now, the second well-founded AI company is called SenseTime. The company raised $2.6 billion. It focuses on computer vision. Now, SenseTime has over 700 enterprise customers and strategic partners globally. It has applications over more than 10 industries. The main technology or product of SenseTime is facial recognition. Their facial recognition service is serving over 400 million people. So the fifth well-founded company is called UBTech. It's another Chinese company. This company is building this service robotics. Right? This looks human-like robotics are produced by UBTech. There's a lot of robotics. So the revenue in 2018 is actually over 300 million. So they sell these robots very well. And their sales increased over 500 times within 4 years. Now, if we look at the 2 other companies from the US, they are autonomous driving companies, Nuro and Argo AI. They both raised $1 billion. Nuro is a little bit different. They are building this self-driving car for food delivery. Well, it can also deliver other stuff later on. Argo AI is more like standard self-driving car company. They're building self-driving cars. We noticed that these 5 top most well-founded AI companies, they are all founded within a few years. And there are so many other unicorns. They grow so rapidly. So the question I want to ask is, why are these AI startups growing so rapidly? There are a couple of reasons. First, there's continuous progress in data processing, computing power, and algorithms. If we look at these 2 figures, this is some statistics on ImageNet dataset. I think many of you should know that. If we look at the classification accuracy on ImageNet dataset, the accuracy continues to improve. Right? In 2014, and actually after 2014, it beats humans, and now it continues to improve. Another very interesting observation is that in the past year or two, the training time on the ImageNet to building these machine learning models actually drops dramatically, right? Thanks to all this parallel computing, cloud computing. Now, the second reason for the rapid growth of AI companies is the significant growth of venture capital into AI. So this figure shows the global AI investments year by year. We can see that the trend is that VC money is growing year by year into AI. And in 2008, the VC money total actually is 70% up compared to 2017. Now, this curve actually shows the number of deals. So interestingly, in 2018, the number of deals that raised money is actually fewer than that in 2017. And we observe large rounds, but fewer deals. Fewer deals meaning fewer companies actually raised money. So why is that? Why, given that so much money is into AI, but money are concentrated on deals, larger, on these fewer deals? There are a couple of reasons, but the main point is that in some AI fields, the bigger gets bigger. Basically, big companies, big startups are easier to attract more money. So there are a couple of reasons. So one is the data network effect, because these AI unicorns tend to collect more and more data. And these data actually provide the company more advances in technology. Secondly, these AI unicorns are easier to attract more AI talents. And you know, more AI talents means, right, you have more power in terms of technology development. Thirdly, these AI unicorns are easier to expand to more territories. TikTok, as I said, the core product of ByteDance, they are actually expanded to the US, Asia, and Europe. Now they have over 500 million monthly active users globally. The fourth reason is that these bigger AI startups can expand to more industries easier. SenseTime, as an example, they already covers over 10 industries. Now, a natural question to ask is, will there be more capital into AI? Probably yes. If you look at the US VC market, 2018 is actually a record-breaking year. So this shows the total venture capital money raised by US startups. In 2018, right, the amount is significantly larger than 2017 and the years before. So looks like this is great timing for US AI startups because there's a lot of money in the market. What about China? In 2017, actually the AI funding, the VC money in China exceeds the US. Right? The total funding in China is about 48% of the total AI funding globally, while US has only 38. But things are changing. So if you look at this figure, right, starting from 2018, so the number of deals and also the amount of venture capital money in China is decreasing. So in China, startups and VCs are facing so-called capital winter. Why is that? There's multiple reasons. One reason is the slowing economy of China, and secondly, also because of the falling share price of the tech giants, people are afraid of the market. There could be some other reasons, but the main point is that in China, the VC market is different. It's changing, and this may challenge the Chinese AI unicorns. The third reason for the rapid growth of AI unicorns is the thriving industry applications. Nowadays, you can see AI unicorns are solving big problems in almost each industry you can imagine. I will go to these details later, but these massive applications drives the rapid growth of AI unicorns. Now, let's ask a second important question. Why do some AI companies grow so rapidly in one country but not in the other? We notice companies like ByteDance, like SenseTime, they are big in China but not in the US. Right? In the US, these autonomous driving startups raised a lot of money but not seen in China. So why is that? So to answer this question, actually, we have 4 key observations. So first, for R&D, US is ahead of China. Secondly, for manufacturing, China has its own advantages. Thirdly, for B2B industries, US is stronger. So what is B2B? B2B stands for business to business, meaning the customers are enterprises. Well, for B2C and B2G, China is stronger. B2C stands for business to consumer. All the customers are consumers. B2G, G stands for government, meaning you are serving government. So for B2C and B2G, China is stronger. The fourth observation is that Chinese unicorns actually are adopting some unique growth strategies. So I will come to these observations one by one. First, R&D, US is ahead of China. Now, if we look at AI talents, right? So if we look at the talents in all AI companies, US is about 1.5x of the number of talents in China. The difference is not that significant, right? But if we look at the number of top AI talents, US has much more advantage. The top AI talents in the US is 5.3 times of the number in China, right? All these AI talents are very important for R&D, for developing these disruptive technologies. Another example is to looking at the autonomous driving technology. This is sort of integrated AI technology because you are building a complex system. This is a figure is very interesting. It's published by DMV in 2018. It shows the miles per disengagement. What does it mean? It means how many miles can a self-driving car drive until a human gets involved. So we can see that the first one is Waymo, developed by Google. Waymo is obviously the top one in terms of the test, right? But this is in 2018. For now, Google is absolute leader. In this chart, US has 16 companies. China has 4. Looks like US self-driving cars companies are much more than China and other countries. Neural, Aurora are also doing well, right? You notice that the top 5 companies are from the US, meaning they are ahead of China. Interestingly, Neural and Aurora are founded by ex-Googles. So Waymo is a leader in self-driving car technology. It has built a large pool of talents. Waymo actually developed the technology 10 years ago, right? So, and the larger pool of talents developed by Waymo actually helped other self-driving cars to build their technologies. So Google made a big impact in the space. Now, the second observation is that manufacturing in China has its unique advantages. Why is that? Because there's relatively low cost of labors and raw materials in China. Manufacturing infrastructure are mature. Highways, roads, and ports in China are well developed. Thirdly, there's detailed division of tasks. So the pipeline of manufacturing is very mature. Examples are UBTech Robotics. They can produce this kind of robotics in fairly cheaper price than anywhere else. Xiaomi is another great example. Xiaomi builds an ecosystem of smart devices in relatively cheaper price. So the takeaway for the US startups is that you can leverage these manufacturing advantages in China. Good examples are Lime and Bird, right? They are building these scooters, which you can see a lot in Santa Monica. Actually, these scooters are mainly developed in China, and these companies can cover the cost just within 20 days. Turing is one example, the company we invested doing security robots. It can patrol indoors and outdoors. Because the hardware are manufactured in China, it's 80% cheaper than its US competitors. So companies here should try to leverage the hardware cost advantage in China. So the third observation is really important. So in B2B space, US startups are stronger, while in B2C and B2G, Chinese startups are stronger. So we actually calculated the average funding of the top 3 startups in each industry where AI is applying to. So the first part is the industries that US startups raise much more capital than those in China. And for the second part, these are industries where Chinese startups raise more money. And if we dig into these two parts, we find that these industries are more B2B industries, where your customers are typically enterprises. While the second part, your customers are more like consumers and also government. So let's explain why is that. In the US, B2B ecosystem is well established. That means AI startups can get access to data easier. You see all kinds of SaaS model-based companies are very well developed in the US. And also, AI has a clear values to enterprises because AI can help enterprises to lower the cost, to improve the efficiency. That's why in the US, a lot of enterprises are trying AI technologies to help them. What about China? China is different. In China, US B2B ecosystem is not well established. The trust ecosystem, the trust system is not as well as developed in the US. Also, because of the low cost of human labors, enterprises in China tend to hire more people instead of trying to using AI to lower the cost or improve the efficiency. And also, in China, B2C has a higher growth and more data. So startups doing B2C space can access data much easier. And in China, you will see that the mobile internet users are growing very fast. The last reason is B2G has a higher revenue and more data in China. So in China, Chinese government is highly supportive on AI startups. They give a lot of data to startups like SenseTime. So by working with government, these big AI unicorns can access more data, and they can also get big contracts from Chinese governments. So this will drive the high growth of these companies. I want to just talk a little bit about B2C space in China, where you can access much more data, right? If you look at this curve, in China, there's 3 times active mobile devices than the US. And the number of food delivery orders is much more, like 10 times in the US. But this is in 2017. I think today, US has more food delivery, right? You see like DoorDash, Postmates, all kind of delivering companies. And also, the mobile payments in China is 50 times than the US. So you can get access to these consumer-based data fairly easily. And you know AI is building on data, so this is the key. Let me give you some example. One example in B2B industry is robotics process automation, where AI can automating large amount of repetitive works. Right? The typical example is UiPath. This company raised about 500 million. Their revenue grew from $1 million to 100 million within only 21 months. You can see that US enterprises are paying a lot of money for this type of company. and it has over 2,000 enterprise customers globally. So another B2B space is cybersecurity, right? US enterprises paying a lot of money for cybersecurity companies to using AI to help them to detect and defend these attacks. One company, CrowdStrike, they raised around 500 million. They actually analyze 1 trillion events per week, and it prevents about 30,000 breaches per year. Very significant. Another example is agriculture, where the company Plenty, they can do over like 300 times crop yield than traditional farms, and only using 1% of water. So you can see AI plays a significant role here in terms of improving the efficiency. Let's look at some example, the B2C space, where Chinese startups is stronger. Entertainment is one example. You can use AI to do personalization, using AI to do intelligent recommendation. ByteDance is a good example, as I mentioned. Another industry, service robotics, companies like UBTech are producing all kinds of robotics to serve people, to interact with people, while AI plays an important role of perceiving the environment and interact with people. A good example of B2G is the physical security space, while Chinese government is highly supportive and give big contracts to startups. Let's look at some number. In China, 170 million security cameras are deployed, and you can expect 400 million more. So there's way more number of security cameras than the US. SenseTime is the leader in the space, but you also notice other competitors from China. FaceTime, CloudWalk, E2 are all raised big amount of money. So the B2G space in China, it actually attracts a lot of capital. I also want to mention that B2B space in China is booming. Although you see that US is stronger in B2B, but now Chinese companies are paying more attention to the space. Why is that? Because the labor costs is increasing because of the aging population. Now, enterprises in China are paying more attention to cost. Secondly, the high growth of mobile internet users, the growth rate is diminishing. Now, Chinese companies are looking at the B2B space more, because you couldn't have such big growth in B2C anymore, like for most field. We can see some example. For example, UBTech, they are building intelligent inspection robots that can patrol and find safety risks. SenseTime is also doing remote sensing. They work on satellite data. They extract insights of the data, then can apply to industries like agriculture. Now, the takeaway for the US startups is that if you are doing something in B2B space, it's a huge opportunity to expand that to China market. One example is DataVisa. Visa is a US company backed by Sequoia. They're actually serving a lot of customers in the US, but also in China. You can see customers like Alibaba, Jingdong, and some other social apps, big social apps in China. Right? They start in the US, but now they expand heavily in China. Another takeaway is that if you are working on B2C or B2G space, actually you can learn a lot from China's practice, because Chinese startups have tried really hard in these spaces. Because B2B is tougher, right? They tried hard in B2C and B2G, and they have explored various possibilities in these spaces. Let's look at some example. Facial recognition. You can see that facial recognition technologies in China have been applied to every industry you can imagine, right? From education, finance, healthcare, entertainment, auto, security, many industries, right here, you can imagine. It's way more ahead of US. Another interesting example is a license plate recognition, right? You can think this as an easier computer vision task to recognize the license plate in your car. Now, in China, many shopping malls have these systems. These systems will recognize your license plate when you get into the parking structure, and when you get out, it will automatically count how much time you spend, and you will pay for it. No ticket needed, right? And it improves the whole traffic flow significantly. So these systems are broadly used in China now, but it's still early in the US. So for startups in the US, it's good to look at some applications in China. Maybe some of them you can apply to the US too. Another example is in physical security space. I mentioned this company we invested, they are doing security robots. They actually learned a lot from the B2G space in China. These security robots will patrol in office spaces during off hours. They will do human detection. They will not do facial recognition because people will have less concern about their privacy. But they will detect humans and see if there's some safety risks. They will also collaborate with the security guards in the US so that if there's some risk discovered, the robot will collaborate with guards to resolve these risks. Okay, now the fourth observation we have is that Chinese unicorns adopt some unique growth strategies. One strategy is the horizontal expansion. Right, in China, there are some unicorns apply the core AI technologies to multiple industries. SenseTime is one example. They applying their computer vision technology to over 10 industries. And also, SenseTime sets up its corporate VC to invest into other strategic partners. They invest companies doing entertainment, companies doing AI with healthcare, companies doing AI with smart cities. So SenseTime is actually doing this horizontal expansion to speed up its whole growth. Right, there's a number of other AI unicorns in China doing similar stuff. Well, we noticed that for most AI unicorns in the US, they're mainly focusing on a vertical because they think it's more capital efficient. Right? We think the horizontal expansion can be applied to some US AI startups too, but not all of them. The second interesting strategy in China is called multiple revenue streams. AI startups in China, they will provide freemium models for early adopters. But how they make money, right? If this is free, they can get revenues from other streams. Let's look at this license plate recognition system as an example. So in China, when these companies build these systems, it's hard for them to sell to these shopping mall owners, right? Because shopping mall owners don't want to pay much for that. They said, oh, I don't need you to pay anything. I will give it to you for free. But in exchange, let me put some ads in the entrance. Now they sell the ads, advertisements to other companies to make money. By doing so, it covers their cost. But later on, when more and more shopping malls have their systems, it's easier for them to sell to many other shopping malls. So actually, this is similar to the B2C growth strategy. Well, like Google provide free services for consumers, right? So that the adoption can be much faster. So Chinese unicorns actually applying this interesting growth strategy in B2C space to B2B. Because B2B in China is so hard, they need to think clever ways to get into the B2C space to accelerate the adoption. So why they tried these kind of growth strategies? As I said, B2B is tougher in China. Its customer adoption is slow. So they need to expand to multiple industries as soon as possible. Secondly, there's growth pressure from investors in China. So in China, investors used to seek B2C growth, which is more like exponential growth, where in B2B space it's harder. So you need to expand to multiple industries to achieve faster growth. And thirdly, there's high pressure from the fierce competition in China, right? So SenseTime is actually competing with these companies in a lot of industries, right? These companies all raised huge amount of money, so the competition is really high. So these companies will try to get into different industries faster than competitors. Now, the takeaway for US startups is that for some startups, you can try horizontal expansion, right? If you have a core technology, and this technology can be applied to multiple industries, you may try this kind of growth strategy. Some examples like self-driving technology, you can apply to auto, retail, security, if you do security robots, supply chain management, if you can do robots in warehouses, right? For robotic process automation and also for fraud detection, you can try similar strategy because it can be applied to many industries. Secondly, the takeaway on the multiple revenue streams, I think US B2B startups can think of other revenue stream than just customers subscribe your services. This actually can speed up the customer adoption, right? If you apply this strategy in the US, maybe you can go much faster than your competitors. So lastly, I want to talk about some opportunities for US startups. So first, you can get into more markets, as I mentioned, China and other emerging markets. So secondly, US startups can learn from China's practices, especially in B2C and B2G spaces. Thirdly, it's interesting to looking at industries with less competition. So there are more opportunities for people to start new AI startups. Fourthly, companies should leverage some new tech trends in AI. So for the third opportunity, startups can step into industries with less competition. So we plot the numbers. We find that for certain industries, there's high capital concentration, meaning startups already raised large rounds of capital. So the competition can be high. But for new startups, it's good to look at some industries with less competition. For example, education, travel, energy, retail, space tech, agriculture, materials, and many others. So in these spaces, no company actually raised huge round of capital. So it's easier for startups to get into. There's less competition. So maybe it's good to pay attention to these industries. So the fourth opportunity is to look at the new technology trends in AI. I briefly summarize into three categories. One is for data processing, AIoT, AI plus IoT, edge computing, 5G. These technology will allow more real-time processing of large volume of data. Second category is computing power. For example, tensor processing unit, TPU, right, is powered by Google. I think it's a good technology to leverage to speed up the whole AI computation. Quantum computing is on the way. We may still need to wait a few years before it gets better developed, but it's promising. The third category is the new algorithms. GAN is one example. You can use it to generate very real fake images. For example, some companies are using GAN to generate faked training data for AI systems. Right? You don't need to get a lot of data. Now you can use the algorithm to generate more training data. Some companies are thinking of applying GAN to do some creation work. Transfer learning, when you apply your AI technology from one industry to others, you can transfer some knowledge you already learned in one industry. Right? If you also expand your system from one country to others, transfer learning can be also helpful. Federated learning, you can do collaborative machine learning, right, without centralized training data, right? You can do more like distributed computing when training a large system. Okay, to summarize, today I shared with you 4 key observations. First, in R&D, US is ahead of China. Secondly, for manufacturing, China has some advantages that US company can leverage. Thirdly, B2B, US is ahead of China, but in B2C and B2G, Chinese companies are actually very strong. So it's good for B2B companies here to expand to China, and also for B2C and B2G industries, US startups can learn from China's success. The fourth observation is Chinese unicorns adopt unique growth strategies. I think for most startups in the US, maybe you could learn something from China's growth strategies so that you can get faster customer adoption. The opportunities for the US companies, first, go into more markets. Secondly, you can learn from China's practices. Thirdly, get into industries with less competition. I think there's a huge amount of opportunities for AI startups to do, right? You can solve big problems in these industries with less competition. And lastly, pay attention to these new tech trends, and you can leverage some of the technology to build your unicorn, right, in the future. Thank you, everyone.